We've done over 31 grand in a day. When the guests are saying, I've never ever stayed in a place like this. And some of the bathrooms and stuff, for example, we do would be in a 10, 20 million pound house. These are like the Rolls Royce and Bentley of bathrooms. Being an entrepreneur is a lonely fucking place. So you've got to be super, super driven and want to go that extra mile all the time. If you're an entrepreneur, you're really at the top of the food chain. So the lads are working for you. If I wasn't motivated, it's just going to reflect on everybody else. Your only competition is yourself. Get your mindset right. You get your skill set. The opportunity comes. Don't just think about the money.
Mark your calendars. The 2025 Property Developer Show is coming to 5 major cities across the UK, bringing the best service providers and developers together under one roof. On the 5th of March, we kick off in the first show at Milton Keynes, followed by Bristol on the 30th of April, Birmingham on the 16th of July, and then we're heading north to Manchester on the 10th of September, followed by our final stop in Newcastle upon Tyne on the 15th of October. Don't miss out on connecting with other developers, service providers, and industry leaders. Visit propertydevelopershow.co.uk to book your free ticket today. Welcome to another episode of the Property Developer Show, the podcast. Today, I'm joined by Tom Sumner, who is a property entrepreneur based up in Blackpool. He's got Swish Apartments, which is a very extremely high-end apartment, and is looking to start his training company in 2025 beyond property training. Plus other things as well. Christ, the list is too long, but we'll get into it in the podcast. Welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So I'm going to kick off and ask the question. In terms of Blackpool and high-end service accommodation apartments, what kind of led you down that path?
This is sort of a vocal point with development in Blackpool. It's sort of, Blackpool's got that stigma of the hen and stag do's and cheap B&Bs and all that sort of thing. But I think when we started this sort of journey, we have obviously that thing with the council. They don't really want that anymore. And obviously there's a lot of development going on in the northwest as well, and obviously in particular in Blackpool there's a lot going on there. So obviously we wanted to sort of do something different. Very risky what we've done, very, very risky, but we knew it would pay off, and we knew this market's sort of coming. So yeah, we sort of took a 2-footed leap straight into it and thought, you know, let's do it, and let's do it to a certain level, certain standard, and obviously it's paid off massively now. You only need to sort of look at our reviews and stuff online. We've got the best reviews in the Fylde Coast by a long way, and obviously take a look on the website. You can see what we're doing. It's pretty decent, to be fair. Super high level sort of accommodation, which I think break from the norm. Instead of just getting a house and throwing a few cushions on a sofa and stuff, this is sort of looking into real detail in what we're using to get a high level accommodation and give people sort of the most for the money in the service accommodation world.
Do you feel like it's like a self-prophesizing business model in a sense of like, people obviously you hear the horror stories with like service accommodation, people trashing the place, people robbing stuff, you know, that sort of stuff. Do you feel like the type of clientele you get kind of, it eradicates that type of personnel because they are kind of, it's a nicer place, they respect it more? Do you find that?
Massively, yeah. So I think there's a market, that low level market is always probably going to be there in Blackpool, because at the end of the day, there's always something for somebody. But we've sort of gone, well, let's pitch ourselves in the higher end of the market, so we've not got any competitors anyway, because we are so high level in that area. So we sort of pitched ourselves there straight away. So realistically, when someone's looking for somewhere to stay, we might be out of their price range. So like I say, you're already sort of in that different area for somebody. So someone's not going to, if someone wants a cheap weekend away, they're probably not going to come to us. And it's like anything, it's like all the big hotel chains. You've got like your Malmaisons and stuff, or you've got a lower end Hilton hotel. There's a market for everybody. So obviously with that, we don't take on hen and stag do's and stuff like that. We have like the meet and greets sometimes, and we sort of, the systems we've got inside with the cameras and the locking systems, we've got we've done it based off commercial really. So like I say, the locks are really, really good. Got motion sensor cameras inside the corridors, outside, at the back. So we've sort of mitigated for everything we can. The ID checks, the way we've set up our property management systems, it's all sort of geared to have a good experience for us as obviously the owner and obviously the guests when they're staying. So yeah.
Makes sense. So, I mean, from the conversations that we had prior to going on air here, you sound like someone that often doesn't tend to walk, just seems to go straight in for running.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that property, the Swish Apartments wasn't your first go at property. You'd built a housing estate from ground zero in terms of no experience, just went straight in for ground up.
Yeah. Well, I've done that. To be honest with you, I've with my background, I was a project manager anyway for a massive project when I was working in Iraq as a bodyguard. But I have that sort of thing where you don't need to know everything. As long as you can manage things and you have a clear sort of vision in how you want to do things, I think if you get the right people in the right places at the right time, you can see a lot of things through. Obviously, you're going to get issues along the way, but I think if you can manage everybody's expectations, you can manage timelines, you can manage all these different things, you can pretty much do anything. And I think that's where I went, do you know what, I'll go straight into doing a housing development. It wasn't obviously one of my first jobs. I was doing commercial conversion before that and residential stuff. I bought my first property in 2007. So I've been and done quite a bit anyway and seen quite a lot of things and learned a lot of things along the way myself. And sort of, I'm very quick to sort of recognise certain things if they're not right. I think that's, again, back to the military thing and the strategy sort of side, what I've been doing in the military and as a bodyguard and working with sort of high-end clients. You pretty much can do anything as long as you've got the right people in the right places. It's anything's sort of possible.
How do you sort of make that transition from obviously the military bodyguard to obviously doing what you're doing now? Did you find that, because I know some people that find that transition quite difficult.
Yeah.
How have you sort of found that?
I think the transition from the military over to the private sector, sort of, if basically doing the bodyguarding stuff, it's sort of a good transition into it. So obviously I did it for quite a while. So I was in the military for just over 10 years. Then I went into, did a year or so working for the military as an instructor, as a civilian instructor, and then went into the bodyguarding thing. So it was quite a seamless sort of thing for me. And I am quite good at adapting to certain things. So yeah, it was quite an easy transition because I was sort of working within that sort of civilian environment for probably 7 years. So then getting into the property thing, initially the property thing was only really to sort of, it wasn't anything long-term planning or anything. It was just sort of, right, let's get a property, a house to live in, and then got into leaving Iraq and started buying other properties, so you buy to lets and stuff. So it sort of learnt along the way, but I thought, geez, I can make some money from this. And it was like, once I've done the first one, renovated it, refinanced it, and thought, I can get pretty much all my money back here.
When was this?
Well, the first one was 2007, and then it was probably 4 years later after that I started buying property then.
Right.
So it sort of wasn't, right, I'm going to be a property developer. No, it wasn't that at all. It was never on the cards, really. I think I got to the end point of when I was working in Iraq, I thought, I don't want to keep being out here and being away for long periods of time. So 4 months, 6 months and stuff at times, missing four or five Christmases over 6 or 7 years. I had my young lad as well and family. So for me, it was sort of, it was the right time to get away from it all. And it was weird because I bumped into someone who I knew from playing rugby with, and they'd got a very good business anyway. And they had a lot of property on the side. I think probably 60, 70 properties they had. And they said, I was just chatting away. And he was asking, what I'm doing. He knew he was in the military, but he didn't know I was doing the bodyguarding thing. I just had a chat, just saying, this is what I'm doing. And funny enough, he had a big building and he wanted to, it was a commercial building, he wanted to convert. And I was just chatting away. He said, we could do with someone like you to sort of manage things and sort things out. And I was like, well, make me a sensible offer. I was on good money out there, so make me a sensible offer and I'll stop what I'm doing. And it was sort of weird. It's like right place, right time sort of scenario. And I just went, yeah, sod it, I'm done. And it was making them quick decisions. That's sort of like, again, it's a bit of a military thing. Just make the decision. It doesn't have to be necessarily the right decision, but make a decision. And my decision was that's it now, I'm coming home. And then started my sort of journey from there.
Just on the point of sort of I guess the military where you just alluded to there, what sort of skill sets do you think you've taken from that background into doing business now?
That sort of belief that I do things, being systemized, being critical of what you're doing. Because like I say, when I was doing the bodyguarding thing as well, more so the bodyguarding thing than the military, is because you're taking sort of high net worth individuals out, or you're on sort of a mission. It's sort of you analysing everything. What if this happens? What if this happens? Right, what's the actions on this? So the standard operating procedures. If something happens here, how are you going to get out of it? So I think that is sort of a really good thing to take into property, because you're sort of systemizing things, or you're recognizing things, and you've been able to react to certain things, but not sort of reacting in a bad way, because you're sort of inviting what's coming, and you're going, if this happens, this is what we're going to do. So I think it's a really, and not just that, I think on site as well, the way I sort of run things on site is very sort of clear, precise. Everybody knows what they're doing. That's sort of that discipline side of making sure everybody's right. I come in there with I show up every day. And it's the way you show up, it reflects on how your lads will show up throughout the day, which will reflect on how the property's developed at the end of it, which would then show up how the money's made at the end of it. It's all that sort of cascading effect. But I think I'm very driven in how I do things. So I think that is sort of a military thing. You are disciplined in how you do things. But yeah, I think it is a good, again, one part of the transition into properties from the military is because there's quite a few people who do get into property, and it's sort of in everything I do now, it sort of reflects back somewhere and somehow from military and the bodyguarding.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, anyone that's in property knows how high pressure it can be sometimes. And I think if you're used to that environment, obviously with a professional career, then you're like a duck to water in this. And I think that's where a lot of people in property don't realise how actually difficult it is. It's very easy to look at property from the outside looking in and go, right, that looks really easy. All I've got to do, buy a property, refurb it, sell it, or refinance it and rent it out.
Yeah.
But actually when you're in there doing the do, and you've got, creditors, you've got, builders that are letting down, got materials that's in like that, no one can really quantify or train you on that specific environment. No. You've got to be able to just deal with it. And I think obviously your background and a lot of people I know that were ex-military kind of take to that environment particularly well, because it gives you that buzz, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's your reaction. So for every action, there's a reaction to it, and it's how you react dictates how things are going to go. So I think, like say, you have got people who don't turn up on time. You might be trying to get stuff done because you're on a bridge and you've got a strict timeline to go, and then someone lets you down. Materials, orders, something might not come in on time. So it's sort of mitigating that risk, and again, that's a military thing, mitigating risk. But yeah, it all sort of ties into property, definitely.
So kind of leaning on where we started this conversation, the ground up development, how did you find going from like the sort of not vanilla stuff, because it's not really vanilla, but the not ground up stuff, to then doing an estate? Yeah,
well, I'll always do, no matter what. It's like some of the projects I'm doing are multi-million-pound projects, but 4 weeks ago I just bought another buy-to-let 3-bedroom. I will always buy them regardless. I'll always do everything there. I see them as sort of a gap filler. So if we're not busy in a certain area, right, I can drop the lads on something else. But again, the way I look at things, I break things down into smaller chunks. So you can have 1 apartment or 100 apartments. It's still the same thing. You're just doing it 100 times over. But I think so I went from there into then commercial conversion, and then into the new build stuff. So we built a new housing estate. It was good. It was sort of got things in a certain way. I had plenty of meetings and stuff and got things running. It was good for experience. I wouldn't say I enjoyed it because it wasn't stimulating enough for me. There's your Gantt chart. There's your orders, right? You're building the same house over and over again. For me, that's not me. If you then come and look at what I do with Swish and the design and all, that's me. So yeah, no, it was good. It was a very, very good experience, and it sort of got me a good lifestyle, and I'm able to buy other properties outright with stuff or buy property. So it's sort of very good for me scaling up very quickly, because we did it because everything we did was very quick anyway. So I was able to then buy other properties and do other things along that journey as well. So it was great on one hand on the learns, but for me, I probably wouldn't do it again unless it was, again, the sort of luxury new build home, which I've already done anyway, but doing that en masse or for sort of certain clients and stuff, yeah. But it was a good learn.
What sort of draws you to that kind of high-end market then?
The challenge, the sort of being able to create something which you can walk away and go, holy shit, that's that for me. Again, I'll use Swish as an example. When the guests are saying this is, I've never ever stayed in a place like this. And like some of the bathrooms and stuff, for example, would be in a 10-20 million pound house, to the point where we've done stuff to a level where I'm now sort of working with brands such as JTP and Impy Tray, CT1, Hans Grower, Vilroy and Box. So these sort of companies are now recognising what we're doing. Even Crown, we're doing an article with Crown Paints, which have just done one on the Malmaison. So we're getting recognised now, being in the Telegraph, the Guardian, World Travel Guide. So within 12 months, we're doing, like, people are seeing, bloody hell, this is something really different. So for me, that's more mentally stimulating. It's not about numbers and money. It's about sort of coming away and going, we've created that, and then seeing people's reactions. Like when you could see, when obviously the cameras go off, you get people screaming when they're going into the buildings, like screaming because it's that good, like the cinemas we're doing and stuff like that. It's sort of getting that, for me, is rewarding, and I prefer that over, like, say, yeah, money's money, you can earn money anywhere, but that for me is really good. That's what I enjoy.
Where does it start then? So in terms of, like, obviously finding the type of property, locating, the materials, the design, where does the sort of process start for you, and what's like the key elements you think to delivering that a successful unit?
It depends what it is. I want to look at making money initially. So on the purchase,
the Swish apartments.
For Swish. So if we go off onto Swish, it's sort of, does it work in that particular area? Is there a demand for that? And can it be done? Because obviously the budgets are super high, and the stuff we put in is top spec. Like, these are like the Rolls Royce and Bentley and bathrooms we do, the kitchens and everything we do in there. It's just got to work. If it works, I mean, I'll give you an example. We've been open less than 12 months on the second hotel. We've got another. We're obviously expanding. We've doing a third now, so it's obviously working. We've done over 31 grand in a day in bookings, over 60 odd grand in a week on some weeks. So it works. So that once we know that works, then they go, well, when's the next one coming? That's why we've expanded quite quickly, because initially we were in the paper, and I mean, we had hundreds of comments, and most of them were amazing comments. And then the odd few were like, Blackpool's not got this market. This isn't. And then you think, you don't know what you're talking about, because people are too quick to say what they think, and they don't know all the insides. They don't know anything. They don't really know a lot on what's going on in that area or why we're expanding. And obviously there's a lot of growth in the area, and obviously hence why we are expanding as a business, and it's working clearly.
So kind of on the design side then, are you kind of keeping units as they are in terms of layout, or are you like, we're fully back to brick here, joist, stud, everything, or? There's
nothing left of the building. We basically, there's the on the first one, it's just the brickwork, and then we had to put steels in everywhere, columns to top to bottom, pretty much everything you can think of we do. And then obviously we are soundproofing. We've had exception on soundproofing because the way we do things. But yeah, it's completely back to nothing. And then we then design the rooms. There's nothing modular in there. Again, I enjoy that. Everything's completely different. Every design, every apartment is completely different. And then that's sort of stimulating to me to be able to go, well, what can we do next? So on the next one, we're doing underground cinemas in kids' rooms, arcade machines, gaming centre. So it's all like stuff there's a demand for certain things. Like people say, oh, we've got a cinema room in here, right? So there's some chairs, a sofa, and a TV. No, like if we're doing a cinema, we're doing a cinema, and the cinema we've got in there is better than a cinema. So like your tiered seat, your tiered stuff, all your quilted leather seats, your subs under the floors, Denon sound system in the ceiling. So it's sort of doing things to a certain level and a quality, so where someone comes in and they remember sort of that experience they've had, because it is about experience. Because if they're spending that time with the family, you want them to have a really enjoyable time with the family. And I think by doing it to this sort of level and design, I think it's really good for the business.
Makes sense. And then in terms of like the finance side, I assume obviously self-funded to begin with. Are you kind of bootstrapping, or are you commercial valuations off the bat?
Yeah, so you've got, it depends on the lender. Obviously, we've built up, like I say, my own portfolio and stuff like that. So it can be a mixture. We can have a bridge on stuff, or we'll self-fund at first initially, depending on the size of it. Some of the developments we're looking at further are massive, so we'll just use other people's money on that. So it'll be the bank's money, because in no point sort of sticking all your eggs into one basket. I think it's just looking at what's going on and then seeing how you can exit.
How are the banks kind of looking at the lendability? Because obviously it's completely unique. There's no comparables.
We've got no comparables.
It's more. I would argue it's a business with a property as a vehicle.
With lenders, it's not. They don't really understand. I don't think what it is, because it's such a new concept. The sort of service accommodation market, especially ours, we're in like a luxury service accommodation. It's sort of. They try and merge loads of different things together, because it's a C1 building, it's commercial property, but then they try and ask you for residential EPCs, and you're like, what? That doesn't even. So obviously they were EPC, commercial and residential work in two totally different ways. One's based off cost and stuff, but so you might get an A on commercial, but then it might be a D on residential, because we're fully electric. So everything in these buildings now, we've just gone fully electric on there. Right. But the lenders, I don't think they're quite there yet with how they're lending. So they might look at something like that and go, right, it's based off of residential. So, right, can you go away and get certain valuations? Right, we can't give you a commercial valuation until after year 3. Is it a viable business? So there's all these different things. But I think because we're at that sort of level, we can sort of suck a lot of things up, because we're doing a lot of stuff anyway. So it's not like a day one thing. You'd be really, if this was your sort of first thing going into service accommodation, I think you've really got to look at, if that's your only sort of pocket of money, you've got to really look at how you're going to come out at the back end of it. That's really important, I think, for someone getting into it.
So really, you're sort of bootstrapping, you're just literally self-funding, and you're not necessarily refinancing the units to go again. You're just literally keeping the money in there and just taking the return on investment with what you've got.
Yeah, or we can look at other assets, so I can sort of collateral bridge potentially on some of my own assets. So listen, there's a million and one ways to you either use short-term investors for something or long-term investors. So there's a million and one ways to do things, isn't there?
Sure, yeah. The reason I asked that question so specifically is trying to understand how lenders work or are looking at that, and what your kind of solution is around that kind of capital tie-up. Because I imagine, I'm making these numbers up. If the property's worth 200 grand done up, you're probably buying it 100 grand, but you're 300 grand deep.
Yeah.
But easily.
Yeah.
So then obviously if you came to sell it, you probably would sell it for 300 grand based on the revenue it creates, but the lenders won't look at it that way, and they'll only give you the 200 grand based on market value.
Yeah. I mean, they can't, all these lenders are so different. They could look at a mixture between bricks and mortar valuation, what it's making on the turnover. Yeah. I mean, we had valuations from different holiday places, and we got the valuations in and we're like triple. Like they said, no, we think it's this, and we were literally like tripled what they said. I said, we'd only been opened 8 months, and they said, oh, it's going to be this after 12 months, and we're like way over that now. So it sort of works, because I know to do something of that standard, you're going to have to pay maybe 3 times the property's worth in getting it to that standard. However, what it returns is a different ball game. So it's sort of, you're going into a project like that as a long-term strategy. You're not looking for an exit of some sort or selling it on. So you're looking at going, what's it going to be doing in 3 years? This is a sort of commercial valuation we might get based off this. And then thinking, well, we're making massive money from it anyway. So the banks will go, well, actually, this is a viable business 3 years on. Hence why we're, like say, moving into number 3 now within a short space of time. So it does work. It definitely does work.
Yeah, it's a difficult. I think a lot of lenders got sort of fingers burnt through COVID, and I think they're slowly, particularly like in the hospitality sector,
Yeah.
they're slowly sort of emerging out of that sort of liquidation and management of that situation. So I think they're slowly but surely easing towards a more relaxed market. And I think the lending landscape at the moment, not so much commercial side like bridging development, that seems to be, you know, relatively flexible and understanding, but the residential sort of mortgage side, I'm finding just a nightmare at the
I think
moment.
everything's hard work. I think the wanting more skin in the game, or sort of less liability, which obviously that's what we're doing. But the wanting less liability, but then charging you more on the interest rate. So it's sort of, as an entrepreneur, like getting into property, you've got to be literally evolving all the time and looking at new different things. Actually, can I do this in a certain way, or is there any way of doing this deal where I can pay you over a little bit further amount of time? So this is, like I say, this is what I sort of going to be getting onto and teaching, and looking at these different strategies and how to sort of merge different things together, whether it be lending or how you do the deal or how you approach a deal or what you can do with a vendor to make it a bit easy for you. So yeah, no, I think it's getting quite difficult now.
Yeah.
It's sort of hoop jumping constantly, and I think having sort of unencumbered assets and stuff as well helps, because you can they know they've got a bit of leverage against you anyway. But I think they're just wanting more and more out here, regardless now.
Yeah. Whether
it's becoming harder, definitely.
100%. Whether it be stress tests, LTVs, just literally any reason not to give you the money. It's almost like it's not their business model to lend money. But, I think, like you say, it's important though to adapt and understand it. Just very quickly interrupting this episode, have you got a property deal in mind? Want to build or grow your portfolio but unsure how to obtain funding? No problem. At Roma Finance, they love to lend. The borrower first approach means Roma deliver flexible, tailored solutions that accommodate the diverse needs and experience of developers across residential and commercial projects. With a flexible criteria, Roma take time to understand each borrower's unique circumstances. Roma's attentive team are always equipped to handle and take on your requests. They will guide and support you throughout the property journey. Colleagues and customer relations are the beating heart of their business. Don't forget to explore Roma's website, romafinance.co.uk, for helpful resources, including articles and case studies to guide your financial decisions. Remember, Roma Finance love to lend. Your property goals are only a call or email away. Now back to the episode. What sort of things are you doing to keep your finger on the pulse? Do you feel like it's just because you are in the trenches, or are you doing additional stuff to kind of, have you got someone that you go to for your mentoring? Like what does that sort of?
Yeah, well, I just do a lot. I do that much research on stuff, and sort of there's a lot of self-talk, because the stuff I do and talk about, I've done. There's no grey area there. It's not that I've learned off somebody else. There's a couple of things, like I say, I've learned and listened off certain people, but I sort of analyse everything I do, hold myself accountable to everything I do. So it's sort of, again, it's sort of that military thing of just sort of cracking on and learning and listening and doing. So for me, it's sort of, my experience is from experience. So there's no sort of grey area there with anything I do.
Are you going to anywhere specific to get your information?
I'll speak to like my solicitors, I'll speak to accountants, I'll speak to anybody who's within sort of getting someone's sort of any more creative ideas and come out with. So I might have a meeting with my accountant, or I might have a meeting with my solicitors thinking, is there any other way we can do this? I think a lot of the time is me doing the strategy thing and going, there must be a way. And again, from what I've done, my experience working abroad, it's looking at different ways of doing things, because I've sort of worked out a lot. Most of the stuff I've worked out myself in going, there must be a different way of doing this, because I sort of work of like a simple stupid thing. It's like, there must be a more simple way of doing this, and that's again a military thing. You just sort of work out the easiest way of doing something. Generally works. It's all the complicated stuff what you don't need to do, which doesn't do anything. So it's sort of working out certain ways of maybe doing a deal, or can it be done in a certain way, or can I lend money in this way? So it's sort of, a lot of it I've worked out myself, but through some mistakes maybe, or sometimes you learn the hard way, or you make it easy for yourself, don't you?
I think that's the process, though, isn't it? It's making a quick decision, as you say. It's figuring out the most efficient route, whether it might feel lazy or not. It's still trying to find the quickest route, and then executing and figuring out, right, well, if it went wrong, where did I go wrong? And then rinse and repeat, but in a quicker way.
Yeah.
And I think that's a underrated trait to have in business. And I think, in my opinion, depending on whether you've got a business partnership or you're a solo entrepreneur or you're a self-starter, which obviously you are, I think you need that trait within you, that it's just, you cut through the crap in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, being an entrepreneur is a lonely fucking place. I mean, sometimes you're like, some of the days, like, I might do 16 hours, 18 hours in a day, and you're thinking, but I know there's some sort of end game there.
What is the end game for you?
Well, again, this is for me. It's not. I've been asked this question a few times. It's not about the money, like people say. Are you gonna, once you've got to X, Y, and Z? No. If I woke up tomorrow and I didn't enjoy what I'm doing, I will stop doing it. And I've done that before on different occasions, whether it be in the military, about enough's enough, or the bodyguarding. Bodyguarding was great, amazing experience. Money was great. The lifestyle was poor, but once I stop enjoying doing something, that's me done. I'll just move on to something else I enjoy. And I say that with my son as well. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, don't do it. You've got a very, very short space of time here. And if you don't enjoy it, why do something you don't want to do or enjoy? Or something what doesn't make you happy, do not do it. Simple as that. Whether there's money at the end of it or not, it's irrelevant.
There must be some things that you don't enjoy doing, but you have to do them.
100%, yeah. Yeah, just like, well, just the long days, or it might be the little things what might annoy you, things aren't gone the right way, but again, you just get over them and just crack on and do them. But again, that's part of property. Nothing is plain sailing. Regardless of what you do, they can have hiccups with materials, or it might be the lenders, or it might be something taking so long. I mean, even lending now, it's probably doubled in time how long it takes to get a mortgage. So again, that's another thing. Then you incorporate that into your timelines then. But yeah, no, I think it's just a case of cracking on and getting stuff done and being clear in what you're doing. But if I stopped enjoying it, I wouldn't do it. Simple as that. Yeah,
it makes sense. I don't blame you one bit. In terms of like the skill sets, from your opinion, you think people, or what makes a successful investor in your opinion?
You've got to have that. You've got to have that belief, that belief thing inside first, aren't you? You've got to believe in yourself, aren't you, to want to do it. There's got to be a reason why you want to do it. And I think being around the right people is good as well, having that right environment. So I think as sort of an entrepreneur, you've got to be super, super driven, and want to go that extra mile all the time, and push yourself. You can't have someone motivating you all the time. You've got to be motivated enough, because at the end of the day, if you're an entrepreneur, you're really going to be at the top of the food chain. So the lads are working for you. If I wasn't motivated, me turn up at site and I just turn up and not motivated, it's just going to reflect on everybody else. So I think as an entrepreneur, you've got to have that energy, physically and obviously mentally, have that energy to just drive forward. Because if people see you're that energized person, you're going to want to be around that energized person, aren't you? They're the person you want to be around. Absolutely. And if you're that person, people are going to gravitate towards you, aren't they? And this is where I see a lot of people online that like looking for investors and all that. They're looking at the money I can do. No, if you improve yourself, people will come to you. Trust me. That the amount of times I get offered money to do certain things, but again, it's a case of want, and if you don't want to do it. But I think as an entrepreneur, if you've driven and you're in the right frame of mind, and it all sort of starts from the start of your day, get up early, go for a fucking walk, do that for a month, and then you'll see a different change in yourself mentally, and then you move forward and start taking them small steps. Small steps make big changes. And I think if you can have a clear direction, write things down, what you want to achieve and why you want to do it, because there's no point doing something and you think, well, is that my end game? Is that my goal? And having that clear vision and working with people if you're doing a joint venture, people generally look at like the deal. They look at the deal and look at, oh, well, we've got the same similar goals. No, it starts with values every time. And if you've not got the right values, if you're working with a person or a group of people, you're starting up with failure there. So I think, again, as an entrepreneur, recognizing what you're doing and who you're doing it with. But yeah, and I think having that motivation is so key for an entrepreneur. Definitely. Regardless of it's property or business or anything you're doing, I think just recognizing and being motivated.
Do you think people can sort of learn that, or if someone hasn't quite got that level of motivation? Because I've met people that have like all the ambition in the world, but they haven't got that motivation to go and chase the goals, to chase that end result. Do you think that is something that is a natural?
I want to, you've got. I won't say it's natural. You've got to, like you might say, someone's a natural born leader or whatever. But I think what inspires you, and I think what inspires you will motivate you. So I think that boils down to environment. If you're in the wrong environment, get yourself out of that environment as quick as possible, regardless of whether it's your family or your friends, or you're in the, like I say, it's that old cliche of if you're in with five millionaires, you're going to be the sixth. That's old cliche, but it's so true. Yeah. And that goes down to the people. If you're with loads of negative people, get yourself out there. If you want to achieve something, the worst place you can be is in an environment with people who don't want to do well, or don't want to motivate you, or sort of put you down, or put your goals and visions, go, well, you're not going to do that. And if you're imagine being around with people who want to do well, you're going to do well, aren't you? Because you're pushed and people are going to help you. So that's why the sort of the networking and being in a collective of people, a mastermind or whatever it is, you're in with people who are sort of wanting you to do well, or in a good frame of mind as well. So that's super, super important to be in the right environment in everything you do, to be honest with you.
Start a podcast and you get people like you, the way you come on, and I think, shit, I'm not doing enough here.
Nah, but the thing is, this is it again, your only competition's yourself. What you were doing yesterday, can you do more? And can you do more the next day? And this is the thing, it's just you're only competing against yourself, because I can't go and look at Warren Buffett or someone like that. It's just it's not a gaugeable thing, is it? But you can gauge what you're doing, and once you start recognizing what you're doing and how you can make them little changes, that's when you can sort of go, do you know what, I can sort of do this. And that's from a starting point. That's a good thing to reckon. As long as you can recognize your own behavior, you can actually, once you start making them little changes, they make big sort of changes over time.
Absolutely.
So I think that's key.
I think it's all about momentum, in my opinion. I think, if you look at it, whether you're attending the gym or doing business, if you look at Elon Musk, the momentum that he's got is basically, there's no ceiling to it. You know, there's no reason why he can't get to a trillionaire and first ever person on planet, because of that momentum that he's got with the businesses and the investments and the money and the capital and the exposure and everything else that kind of comes with it. But like if you and I compared ourselves to him, we'd never get started.
You wouldn't start, because you go, oh geez, I'm not going to. You sort of, I think it's sort of having gaugeable. Obviously, you can have that bit of a limitless mindset as well. But I think having gaugeable goals where you can go, actually, I reckon I can get to there by this date, but how am I going to do it? And where do I start? So I think once you get into the macros of everything in your mindset, once you're in the right frame of mind, you can pretty much do anything. And like I say, if you improve, you get your mindset right, you get your skill set, the opportunity comes. Don't just think about the money, because listen, when I get investors, I interview them. Are they right for me? Not the other way around. Which people go, Jesus, that's a bit of a backwards thing. Is you need the money to do this? No, it's for me. It's, are you a right fit? And that boils down to are your values aligned with my values? So I'm bringing them you're coming to my table to do X, Y, and Z, and that's the sort of mindset I have. Because you're coming into my world to do these things and using my sort of knowledge and vision and everything I want to be doing. You're coming to me, and I sort of interview them. So it sort of puts the investor on the back foot, because it's usually I've got the money and you. It's not like that. It's we're on this journey together. So you've got to have, again, number one, your values is key.
Have you always thought that way, or was there a point sort of early on where you were like, right, I want to be a millionaire, that's the chase? Or have you kind of, been a gradual thing that you're like, actually it's purpose driven and the money just comes as a byproduct?
Yeah. It's just money is a byproduct of your success, I think, along with other things. But it's never been that case. Yes, it's nice to have nice things and nice to be comfortable, but it's all based off want. If you want to do something, then you go and do it. If you don't want to do it, you just generally wouldn't do it. But for me, it's not been about being a millionaire, because at the end of the day, you go to the grave with the million the same size bloody coffin, aren't you? So for me, it is them things of, am I going to create something amazing? Am I going to walk away going, do you know what? That's amazing how I've done things. And I think it's massively a challenge as well. If I can do something like building an amazing house or something, that's a really good challenge, and I can walk away from it going, that's what we've achieved. What's next? That's that type of thing. So yeah, I think it's just having that drive to do it, but it's all based off wanting to do it as well. But yeah, it's never been the case. At the end of the day, I joined the military. You don't join the military to make money, do you?
No.
So it's one of them things, and it's sort of never been that case. It's just happened. And it's just to think, well, Jesus, that even just doing a normal buy to let, once you get 30, 40, 50, 60 grand in the bank just for doing a buy to let, and Jesus, what do I do 4 of these a year? I won't need my 9 to 5 job. I can go and do this, and it's easy done as well. This is the thing. It's, if people sort of got in that frame of mind and wanting to do something, it's easily achievable.
Definitely. No, I agree. I think it's finding that purpose, isn't it? I guess my next question, just leaning on that, what, for someone that hasn't quite found that purpose, what advice would you kind of give to them? You know, that maybe they've not been fortunate to find a early career, or they've been floating about a bit. How do you think someone could try and find their purpose?
Again, I think starting off with the self-reflection. So you've got what's going to make you happy ultimately. So finding out what makes you happy, what gets you sort of going, what gets you motivated. Once you find them little things, and then it's the how can I get to this point? Or just start off, think big, but don't go big. Think big and use small steps to get to that end game. So start off with, let's say people saying, I want a £10 million property portfolio. Well, start off small, because there's less room for error, less rooms for it going wrong. So get that experience, and that'll motivate you. Once you get that one, I'll tell you now, the mindset shift you'll have once you get that money back in the bank, you'll be motivated from that and go, Jesus, I can go again. I could do 2 of these. Actually, I could do 3 of these, 4. And that's that sort of snowball effect of it. So yeah, I think getting into that right frame of mind is based off analysing what you're doing as a person, making the changes and taking the action. Because if people go on property course and stuff and don't take an action, but that's down to the first part. Get the first part right, the second part will come. And I think that's sort of key.
Makes sense. I like that answer. In terms of 2025 then, because I know you mentioned the training company. I don't know whether it was on air or off air, I can't remember now. But in terms of like the plan for the next 12 months, more apartments, focusing on the training stuff, what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, so we're sort of finishing. We're going to be at the back end of the 3rd hotel, again, which is going really well. We're still buying more property. We're looking at others. We've got some crazy big developments and sort of in the pipeline.
Nice.
Multi-million pound developments, which have potential to be, like I say, crazy rents and stuff like that. Yeah, some massive things. But yeah, we're for me as well, because I've been mentoring for a long time now, and I've been sort of training people since like 2003. Not in property. That's only sort of the last few years. Looking at sort of creating this property training company, which I've been doing over the last few months. So we're sort of doing the websites and all the media and stuff on it at the moment. But it's sort of creating quite a bespoke thing. There's no one else doing what I'm doing. It's sort of doing things at a certain level. Like say you've got a Peugeot or you've got a Rolls Royce, aren't you? There's certain things, people. There's a market for everybody. My market's sort of high end. Someone who maybe is very successful in their own business, but they want to get into property, but they want to sort of learn how to do things in a certain way. Maybe be able to do it on the laptop. And because I sort of use AI now in a lot of things, which again is crazy what you can do with that. This goes back to the strategy side of I'm sort of, when I look at what everybody else is doing, they're sort of trying to create property developers. Whereas for me, with what I'm doing, I want someone to walk away from working with me, being an entrepreneur, property entrepreneur, be able to look at everything, not just one strategy. I want you to be able to look at everything and be able to do everything, and then find your niche as well and be exceptional at it. And then also have that support as well with the community, what I'm sort of collectively getting together. We will have the best property community, hands down, in training, because it's all built from ground up, from a mindset sort of level where it's my sort of teaching system which I used. Like I say, there's no one doing it to that sort of level. You only need to look at what I'm doing with my other businesses and how we're doing it. And it's sort of, that's how I want people to come away from being with me, being able to do that, but have the support as well and the confidence to do it and not procrastinate and go, actually, I can do this. And when I'm doing it at a certain level in a certain way. And that sort of boils down from my experience of how to do things. And I think if I can put that over to someone who's sort of coming into my area and then wanting to come away with pretty much everything and be able to attack anything, I think it's a good thing, because there's a lot out there. I think there's a bit of a pandemic out there of people doing a couple of courses and then they're all of a sudden some sort of expert.
Yeah.
I just think that's social media for you.
I think it's the only industry that I'm aware of, entrepreneurship, property, where someone with 2 years experience will start training other people on how to do what they've done. Like, can you imagine walking into a university environment and like, oh, the lecturer's he's only just graduated this year, but he's going to be teaching you today's lesson. You'd be like, what?
Yeah, with no life experience.
Yeah.
If you're good at social media, I think there's a lot of trainers out there, and I'll happily have a conversation with anybody who are not necessarily good trainers, but they're good salesmen, and there's a big difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's something what probably can't be regulated anyway, but because you can't really how do you regulate experience? It's down to it all boils down to the individual, what they want, and there is a market for everything. It's life's difficult enough as it is for you to go and pay money to someone which you probably haven't got, and then come away with not a lot. Which is pretty annoying, really. I don't want to be involved in any of that or in that market, and I clearly won't be, because to come and work with me, you've got to be doing something, and I will be vetting people, and I won't be teaching masses. It'll just be a small amount of people who come and do things, and then you've got that really close-knit community with the values, and that's for me the single and the most important thing.
Yeah, I know, and I'm not saying you fall within this category, but I know a lot of successful property people. I say a lot, I know probably 2 or 3 where they've tried the training and they just lose patience with it, because people don't deliver the same results that they've been getting, and the bar kind of their bar is here, and they're training people that are here, and they find it so difficult to kind of align that momentum sort of thing. And even though what they know is like, and I imagine you fit that category, is like, if you don't know, it's not worth knowing kind of thing. But they find it difficult to get to that, because they are coming from such a genuine place to try and deliver training, but they just can't align that. Whereas the people that are just surface level stuff, that aren't technical at all, don't really know anything above, 50% of what you need to know, they're the ones that grow and scale, because they're just offering crap, basically.
And this is where I say, they can teach you how to be a property developer, but not an entrepreneur, and there's a massive difference between the two. And for me, because I have and own all these different strategies, I've done it, I can see what works and doesn't work, because I could have potentially 2 people come to me and say, right, I want to come on your course, blah, blah, blah. One's in central London and one's in the middle of the Lake District. They're looking at 2 different things, aren't they? So I've got to be able to then go, well, what's their needs and what's their needs? And that's what I can do. And it's sort of merging different strategies and different ways of lending and how to do different things. And ultimately as well, when you're coming in, your first port of call is that you sort of, because when you start off in property, you're setting up a business, aren't you? And you are your own person. So if you're going out looking for investment or looking for doing a business development plan or whatever, you're trying to sell yourself. So again, that's part of what I'll be doing, is sort of turning you as an individual into a sort of one-man machine type of thing. So you're able to come away and go, this is me, this is the brand, this is what I'm doing, this is what direction I'm going into as well, and this is how I can do it. And that's a sort of what can be done. It can be done because I'm doing it. So it's because I have done it. And so it's sort of walking the walk, opposed to going, right, I've done a property course and now I'm going to go and start teaching people, but I've got no assets, I've got nothing there to show from it, and I've done a couple of rent to rents maybe, and now I've done, and that to me is not good enough. And that all boils down to standards. And like I say, from what I'm going to be doing is totally different. And the way I do things with AI and everything as well is with what I've found, what can be done, even for like tradesmen and stuff who might come to me, it's game changing. Some of the stuff I'm doing is game changing.
So I imagine that's got a few people excited.
How
can they get in touch with you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, so I've just been in the last edition of Blue Bricks with Swish, with my partners. We were in there, and then I'm on the next edition at Blue Bricks as well. But if you go on Instagram, it's Beyond Property Training.
Cool.
Or
just one word.
Yeah, Property Training, one word, or the same on Facebook. They'll only just be on there anyway, so it's sort of new. The website's ongoing, obviously, and obviously I'm developing the training package as we go. But yeah, you can get me on Facebook and Instagram anyway, or if you go on to Swish Holiday Apartments as well, I'm on there. But yeah, no, if you reach out, if you want to sort of get engrossed in property and sort of do it right, then come and give me a shout.
Super. Well, I appreciate you coming on today, Tom.
No,
it's been
thank you for your
pleasure.
time.
A lot of obviously gems and conversation there for sure. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Cheers for that.
Thank you for listening today. Hopefully you've got some real value from this episode. And obviously, as I say every episode, please do like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and do leave a review on the audio version. It does help the podcast. We'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.